taking the time to listen to my story, and thank you, Dennis, for the opportunity to share it. I am Leah Schust, and my official title is Mom. I also serve as the founding president of the Family's SCN2A Foundation. All of you listening in today represent the many, and you hold the power to find a cure for SCN2A. What my goal is with this talk is to inspire you with the story of the one. So after I share a little bit about my family's journey through the diagnosis of a rare genetic disorder known as SCN2A, I'm going to show you how we went from being the only one to part of a much larger movement. The word cloud on this slide was created from the most commonly spoken words at our very first conference in 2016 at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. I think it represents us pretty well. Meet Ben, serial hugger, AKA the one. Ben loves ceiling fans, cheese puffs, jacuzzi baths, and of course me. Ben has the amazing ability to win over people's hearts without saying a word or even really making eye contact. He is the definition of love and truth. Because he's nonverbal and intellectually functions at a much lower age than his chronological age of 7, he's unable to do many things. But some of my favorite things are his inability to lie, his inability to cheat, steal, be sneaky, or hurt anybody else. Ben is able to do many things too, and some of my favorites are his ability to hug, love unconditionally, snuggle, and make others so very happy. So Ben was born on a Friday, October 1st, 2010, after a pretty uneventful pregnancy. He was gorgeous and perfect in every single way. He was the prettiest baby in the nursery, and that's fact, not bias. You can ask my mom. It was not too long into his 2nd month that I felt something was just off with him, and I brought up my concerns numerous times to his pediatrician. He wasn't really making eye contact. He was actually avoiding it. And he was not really bearing weight on his legs like normal babies do when you stand them up. He was had a shaking in his right leg that I remember trying to describe to the pediatrician. Well, I now know what that was. It's called clonus. He also had this excessive lower jaw quivering that kind of happened in a repetitive way. All of my concerns were dismissed. They were either dismissed as immature nervous system or paranoid first-time mom, or my favorite, he's a boy, boys are just lazy. So after a very significant regression at 11 months where Ben lost his smile and the few sounds that he was making, mama and dada, we knew something was wrong and we just assumed it was autism. At his 1-year checkup, we stood firm and we demanded to be heard. And we finally got a referral to get his development tested, but we never made it to that appointment. He started having seizures 6 days later and was diagnosed with infantile spasms, which some of you may know is a catastrophic form of epilepsy. The autism concern just fell to the curb because now we were in a race to stop his seizures and save his life. Ben was having hundreds to thousands of seizures every single day. Most days he did nothing but seize and sleep. And he lost every single skill that he had gained in his first year. After failing 7 drugs and the ketogenic diet, we found a combination of meds that brought Ben some relief from his seizures, and he began to relearn his skills. It was another year before we learned what the cause of his epilepsy was. It was a mutation on the SCN2A gene. SCN2 what? It was just a bunch of letters and numbers thrown together to us. We were told a lot of things in 2011, none of which hold true today. Like, we're the only case of SCN2A that exists. And because it is so rare, there's no research. And because there's no research, there is and never will be a cure. We were told that this was a tough break, and this was just the hand we were being dealt, and to prepare for the worst. Ben will never walk, he'll never talk, he'll always have seizures, and he likely won't make it through childhood. There's really no words to describe the emotions that go along with the diagnosis of a serious life-limiting disease for your baby. I had dreamed about Ben in a Little League uniform since the day that the Sono-Tech told us we were having a boy. And just like that on D-Day, which is diagnosis day, that dream just poof, went away, along with many, many other dreams that I had for his future. And then the panic kicks in. And how can I undo this? How can I go back? This cannot be our reality. We were forced to change everything we thought we knew about parenting and learn an entire new way. We were thrust into a world, a very different world, one that we were blissfully unaware of just a few days before. And in this new world, babies have seizures and they die. It was and is a world of suffering and constant fear. So as you can see from this really long list, Ben is not well. He suffers from an array of medical and developmental diagnoses because of his SCN2A diagnosis. Our life now revolves around a disease, and when we were faced with the choice to either accept it or take action, we chose action, and we chose to fight it. It goes without saying that we accept Ben, and of course we love him for who he is and how he is today, but we are fighting for a better future for him every single day. After all, he went from a walking, babbling 1-year-old to a 20-pound newborn and has since relearned how to hold up his head, how to crawl, and how to walk for a second time. He endures 8 hours a day of intense therapies and instruction. He is resilient, and he's stronger than I can ever be. The least I can do is fight for him. So the fight begins. In 2013, after Ben's diagnosis, I started a Facebook group, just a very simple group to find another mom to connect with. I just needed to know that we were not the only case. I didn't believe that. Within 6 months, we had 20 families in the group, and then a year later, 50. In 2014, along with 2 other parents, we started the work to take the Facebook support group to the next level. The Families SCN2A Foundation was born. In 2015, Families SCN2A Foundation received our official 501c3 status, and we began fundraising. In 2016, we had our first parent and professional conference at Lurie Children's Hospital, where we had in attendance 25 families, all with an SCN2A diagnosis, along with about 75 professionals. Last summer, we held our second conference at Nemours in DuPont, in Delaware, and we almost doubled our attendance. So, as you can see, Ben is not the only case of SCN2A, and I am not the only parent who chose action. We are now the sum. And let me tell you, there's power in numbers. Our conferences brought families together from all over the world. Meeting other families going through the same thing as your child, it brings you a feeling of belonging and strength. The information these families learn at these conferences empowers them to go home and advocate to their medical and educational teams for their children. This can actually save lives. Many families are now being referred to our foundation at diagnosis by their geneticists and neurologists. So we met our first goal, and that was to get SCN2A on the map. Our goal, our mission is pretty simple. It is to find a cure. We have learned a lot since 2011. There is an increased understanding of how the gene works and what the changes mean on a cellular level. We know that SCN2A does not mean Dravet syndrome. In fact, the gain-of-function cases have the opposite effect, the opposite pharmacological reactions as Dravet syndrome. So it's really important to know the difference. We know that it's still significantly underdiagnosed, and we're predicting hundreds of more cases as genetic testing becomes more available. Another really important discovery is the vast spectrum of phenotypes in SCN2A. You've met Ben, so let me introduce you to a few other ones. They are pictured from left to right in order of severity. So Mark on the far left, he has a missense mutation, and he presents with only autism and intellectual disability. He's never had a seizure. His variant is considered a loss of function. Colin in the middle with the birthday cake, he presented with seizures on day 1 of life. but he became seizure and med-free at 18 months. And he has a diagnosis of autism and intellectual disability. His variant is considered a gain of function. And on the far right, you'll see Charlotte. Charlotte had a deletion. She presented with really early onset, intractable epilepsy, which sadly took her life right before the age of 3. Although it is clear that no SCN2A cases are the same, we have noticed some really strong patterns and in the discussion group, and the researchers find this information pretty fascinating, and it helps them along with their work. The sum became the many as we started collaborating with the research community. We help bridge the gap between science and real life, and basically how the research translates into a cure and treatments. Researchers bring us hope, and in turn we hope that we can inspire them to continue their hard work, because our kids are really counting on them. SCN2A is fortunate to have the world's most committed and compassionate researchers working towards a cure for our kids. An international database of SCN2A patients has made us an attractive target for research and drug discovery. This is just a snapshot of some of the data that's collected from our patient registry. You'll note here, though, that we have well over 100 patients registered with the database, but we chose for this purpose to take out any variants of unknown significance, just to be 100% sure of the accuracy. Families find this really interesting, and they like to see the trends, and the medical community can now define the disease and predict outcomes for their newly diagnosed patients. They can also take the necessary steps to stay ahead of complications by setting them up with the right specialists. Here's some more. This is, it talks about the different seizure medications that have worked and some milestones. So we are really honored and proud of our relationships that we've built with these organizations. This is just a sample of some of them, because it is going to take the power of the many to cure the one. I'm going to stop here and thank you guys so much for listening, and take any questions that you might have.